Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. This is Fahim Niaz. I'm the product manager for Anime Studio. Today we have a very interesting and wonderful webinar on how to apply the principles of animation in Anime Studio 10 with Victor Paredes. As many of you know, Victor is one of the premier animators that uses Anime Studio, so this will be a great webinar, a great learning experience for all of us. Before we begin the webinar, there are a few things that I would like to mention. Number one, please start asking questions right away. That way we can address them at the very end. We'll have a portion dedicated to just answering questions with Victor. As well, all attendees will be muted except for the presenters, so please note that as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat box area where you can, and then we'll address them at the very end and make sure to address as many as possible. If we do miss any questions, we apologize ahead of time. We will try to address them either on social media or through the forums. So with that, I'd like to pass the ball over to Victor, and Victor will begin his presentation.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you very much for being here today. This is my first webinar about real animation. All the other webinars before were about technical stuff about Anime Studio, so it was especially hard to create this webinar. So all the stuff here in this webinar is about how I apply the principles of animation in my animation. So I want to help you to get better animations, but maybe I could make something in a not correct way. I am not a totally expert in animation, so I'm sorry if so. And of course you can check the animation principles in several places in internet and from other people, so just take this as a guide. Okay, so first I want to show you, I want to recommend you two books I really like about animation. These books are The Animator's Survival Kit by Richard Williams, which is a great book of animation. It covers all the principles. It has exercise, some of them simple, some other more complex. It is a very nice book. I really recommend you to start reading this book. You will learn a lot, and personally I always, when I need some help, I always go back and read this book again. It is really helpful to learn the technical aspects of animation. Now I really like this other book too, which is called Animated Performance by Nancy Baiman. This book is great, and I really like how these two books works together, but because this book is not about technical animation. It is more about how you create a character that feels alive. Okay, it is about the performance of the character. So you take the character as an actor, a very special actor who lives in the rules of animation. So it is a very fun to read book. It has a lot of interviews very interesting to other animators. It has a lot of exercises. I really like this book, so I can recommend you these two, always starting by reading the Richard Williams, and then if you want to read Animated Performance, there are some other books you can check too. Right now I am reading The Illusion of Life, but I can't recommend it to you yet because I haven't finished it. So, but it is very good so far. So let's start. I want to start with this character, which is the wolf. I don't know if you have seen the video cards we have released with Smith Micro. So this is a character from that card, and you can see it is set up in the Anime Studio 10 way. So we have target bones for the legs. Okay, you can check. This is not a webinar about rigging, so I won't show how this character is rigged. I just want to use it to show the animation principles. So you can see it has targets for the feet. It has some bones, smart bones for head turn, blink to move the pupils, the mouth. Okay, so we have several controls here. Okay, so we will animate this character. So the first thing I like to do when I am animating is to freeze the pose of the character. So that means I will add a keyframe for every bone which is in the character. Okay, so I will select all the bones of my character with the select bone tool. Now go, I am in frame 1. Now go to the transform bone tool and reset the position, reset the scale and the angle. Okay, so I just reset the 3 channels for all the bones. So you can see now I can see the channels here for angle, translation and scale, and the red channels for each selected bone. Okay, so now making this, now I can go, for example, to frame 24 and go to bone menu and select here freeze pose. Okay, probably you will have the shortcut Control F or Command F in your Mac. You can change all these shortcuts in the help menu here in edit keyboard shortcuts. So I have Control F to freeze the pose of the visible bones. So now I just freeze the pose, and you can see how I already created another set of keyframes for this character, but now in second one. So we will start by making this character jump. Okay, I think it is a simple action to show how some of the animation principles work. So we will make a jump of 1 second, for example. So I have the character here in second 1, okay, and I will move to the left of the screen in second 2. I will have to move the feet. Okay, so I have the character moved. Okay, I will press Ctrl F to freeze this pose, and now in the middle I will move the character up and the feet too to make the character jump. Okay, so now the character is making something like a jump. Okay, so now if I check the animation, the character is making something like a jump. Okay, so now the first thing I always see in animations made with this software is that the actions happens very slowly, and in this case we made a jump of 1 second long. Okay, and 1 second is a lot of time. Okay, so I recommend you to make all your or most of your actions shorter than that. So I will scale this jump, for example, for a portion of the second. So now the character is jumping much faster. Okay, but I like it most. Okay, so you can see no action actually longs 1 second. Right now I am moving my hands, and my hands are not moving in very slow movements of 1 second. It moves in in fractions of a second. So check that and remember, avoid the slow movements. Okay, so we have the jump. Okay, and this jump we will call it the action. Okay, so I will create here a marker, okay, which will be named action. Okay, and I will mark this section of the timeline as the action. Okay, it is just a marker. It doesn't have anything to do with the real animation. It is just a mark. Okay, so now for animation we have the principle of anticipation, and an anticipation is something that always happens before an action. Okay, so if the character will jump, an anticipation will be the character going down. Okay, normally an anticipation is something like the opposite movement of your character. So I will freeze the pose, for example, here. Okay, and now instead of having my character hold in the same position, I will move it down before, sorry, here, down before the jump. So maybe he can move the body a little and the arms. Okay, so now he's anticipating and then he's jumping. So I will mark here another marker which will be called anticipation. A little longer. I will change the color of the action just to make it more visible. So we have anticipation, action, okay, and then we have the other part of any movement is the reaction. So I will mark another part here and I will call it the reaction. Okay, so we have anticipation, action, and reaction, and the reaction will be what follows the action. So if my character is jumping and falling to the ground, the reaction will be the body going down. Okay, so now my character is going down and then stabilizing up again to the normal position. Okay, so we have anticipation, action, and reaction, and you can see how now these three parts of the action actually helps to give the illusion the character wants to jump. He is deciding to jump. Okay, so you can see it looks better than before. Okay, so this is a very basic use of anticipation, but you can see anticipation can be used in any action. So for example, I will freeze the pose here just to show you a movement, and let's suppose my character will move its arm up. Okay, so here. So I have this movement. Okay, it is fast. Okay, but it is not too interesting. Okay, so I can apply anticipation to this movement. So I just freeze the pose here, and now I will add an anticipation for this arm. So before he's moving up, I will move the arm to the other side. Okay, so first he moves the arm to the other side, then goes up and go to the position I want. So I have anticipation, the action, and now I will make the reaction. Maybe the character will move the movement beyond the place I want. So here is the position he gets, and then he goes back to the position he really wants. So I have, again, I have the action, very short here, in green. Okay, I have the anticipation and I have the reaction. So anticipation, action, and reaction. And you can see how now the arm moves better. So instead of having 2 keyframes, we have 4. Okay. Now, another problem I always see in the characters made with this software is that people forget to move the entire body. So our character is always acting with the entire body, so we can add some body movement for the action. So for example, the anticipation maybe could be with the body going down. So he's anticipating with the entire body, then he goes up a little, and then he goes back to normal position. Okay, so now we have an arm movement, but that arm movement is also working for the rest of the body, so we can change this animation. For example, maybe he can move to the side with the body. Okay, so maybe this foot is up here. Okay, and now we have another reaction here. Okay, so we are just making this action more complex. I just want to show you how the anticipation and reaction works for any part, any action, and it works for any movement, and you have to use the entire body to animate. Okay, so we can move any part, the other arm, the tail, the ears, the head, whatever I want. I want to show you another way to anticipate here. So I will freeze this pose. So let's suppose we have our character looking a little here. Okay, so I have a couple bones for the eyes. So I want to, now I want to make the character to look to the right of the screen. So I will just move the eyes to the right. Okay, so I have this movement. Okay, but it is not too interesting to animate, so I can add some anticipation and some reaction for this eye movement. So let's suppose that instead of moving to the right, first the eyes moves to the left. Okay, so the eyes anticipates the movement, and then instead of getting the last position, they goes beyond the position. Okay, so you can see now my eyes look more interesting with anticipation, action, and reaction. Okay, so you see, you can apply to anything you're animating. Okay, so now let's go back to the jump. I will erase this animation. So I have the jump. Okay, so my character is jumping or trying to jump. But now we have some problems here. For example, we have this pose which could look interesting, right? But then we have this pose. The jump starts with a very boring pose. So I will change this pose. Okay, he's jumping here. So let's suppose one of the legs is already up and he is moving. So now he is jumping. And now again in the middle, the pose is very boring. So I will change the pose. So now to know if your pose is reading well in the animation, it is good to see the silhouette of the body. So for example, I can check the silhouette by going to the layer properties here and colorizing in black my character. Okay, you don't need to make this, it is just to show you the point. So if I render my character, now it renders in black. So this silhouette of this pose hard to read because I don't know where the arms are. So probably I will, if I make a more interesting pose, okay, it will be easier to read. So if I render this, you know exactly what is happening. Okay, so I am not telling you that you must render the silhouette in black for all characters, but you have to check that your character pose be easy to read. Okay, and this way is nice to check that. Okay, so we have the character jumping. Okay, now we will make a more interesting pose here. So if one leg is up, the other maybe is down yet. Okay, and then when he falls, maybe he is still falling, and maybe the other leg is up yet. So the legs are not moving at the same time and not falling and touching the ground at the same time. That's another principle which is called overlapping. Okay, and it is very simple. It just says that not all actions happen at the same time. So here the legs moves at different times. So maybe here the two legs are up, but then one leg is down and the other is still up. Okay, and then it must get the ground. Okay, but after the other leg. Okay, so you can see how that gives more life to my jump. Okay, now there is another principle, okay, which is called follow through, and that means that some parts of the body which I am animating will follow the movement of the body. So for example, we can apply that to the arms. For example, if the character is jumping, the arms can go down because of the gravity. The arms go down, and then when the character is falling, the arms can go up. You see? Okay, and maybe when he's still falling, the arms is still up here. Okay, and then finally they fall. Okay, so the arms are following the movement. Okay, we can add some in-betweens here. Okay, and they can fall in here. Okay, so now we have the arms following the movement. Now we can make the same for the ears, for example. So not all actions happens at the same time. Some parts of the body are more flexible, so they will follow the rest of the movement of the body. So we will take the ears. I will select the ears here. I will erase the keyframes of the ears. Okay. So now I will animate the ears, but at a different time than the rest of the body. So for example, when the body is going down, okay, now here I will move the ears going up, and when the character is going up, the ears will be to the other side. Sorry, here, not to the other side. They will follow, but at different time. And then when the character falls, the ears will also fall, but after the body, not at the same time. So I will move the ears here, and then they will go back, and then they will stabilize to the real position. So we have this. Okay, maybe it's a little slow right now, but I can move the keyframes to improve the animation. Okay, now I like more. So you can see now the ears follows the movement. Okay, now we can apply overlapping for this ear, so I can select only one ear, select its keyframes here, and maybe move it 1 or 2 frames after the other ear. So this ear will move after the other one. So now you can see the action is not happening at the same time. So that helps also to give more life to the character. Okay, so we have the ears also moving. So you have to remember that the gray line in Anime Studio, in this software, the gray line shows all the keyframes for all the bones. Any of the bones with a keyframe will be shown here in this line, but the red line show me only the keyframes of the bone I have selected. Okay, so if I selected, for example, the body, I can see the keyframes of the body, here the keyframe of the chest, the head, the ear. So you can animate by selecting and editing the bones one by one in some cases. Okay, so now we can add, for example, some blink to make the character so when he's jumping, he will blink. Okay, so now he has the eyes closed, and maybe he will open when he falls. Okay, so you can see it also helps to give more life to the character. Okay, so now another problem, which is about work with slow actions, is, for example, head turns. In this software it's very easy to make a head turn, more now with smartphones, so it is easy to see in YouTube or in the forum very slow head turns, and that doesn't look good. So we have the tool to make head turns, but that doesn't mean we will have to make slow head turns. Okay, so I will make a head turn here, so it will be very short, some frames, so he will look to the other side. Okay. But again, we will make some anticipation for this head turn. So a good anticipation could be to move the pupils. So for example, I have my character here, he will move first the pupils to the right, so he is looking something, and then he moves the entire head. Okay, so this is another kind of anticipation. He first looks and then turns. Okay, and of course we can apply some other anticipation with the body. Okay, we can change the pose of the character to make it look more interesting. So you see, sometimes there are different kind of anticipation. So we had a very simple head turn, but now we transform it to another kind of movement. Now the body is moving all together. Okay. So now finally I want to show you a little tip to make follow through for the tail. You know, I haven't animated the tail yet, and we will animate the tail now. So first I want to select the bones of the tail, okay, and I will erase all the keyframes for the tail. Okay, so actually the tail had no movement, it has keyframe because I freeze the pose, but now it has no keyframes. So now I have all the bones of the tail selected. I will go to edit and select inverse. Okay, so now I have all the bones selected but the bones of the tail. Okay, so now I will go to bone and select hide selected bones. Okay, so I just hide all the other bones and I want to see only the tail. Okay, and this is very cool because now I can animate only the tail. I still having the movement of the other bones, but I can focus on the tail. Okay, so now we have the tail alone. Okay, I want to see the shape of the jump. Okay, so let me show you here. If I go to the vector layer here, I have a line which is the ground. Okay, now I will enable the onion skins, okay, because I want to see how the character is jumping. So I will put an onion skin in the start of the action, then in the middle, and then at the end. Okay, so I just want to have this shape. Okay, it is not looking too good because the character have a lot of masking and some complex stuff. Okay, but I can see how the body is moving. So having that, I will go to the frame 0 in the vector layer, go to the add point tool, okay, and I will create the shape of the jump. So my character is moving in a shape similar to this one. Okay, so the body starts here, moves, and then falls here. Okay, very simple. So now I will clear the onion skins. Okay, I can clear all here. I can disable the onion skins. Okay, and now we will use this arc to animate the tail. So first I will freeze the pose of the tail here in the anticipation. Okay, a little bit. Here it is freeze, and now I will make the tail follow the shape of the arc. Okay, so the tail will follow the shape of the jump. Okay, so maybe I have to make it frame by frame. Okay, I am just rotating the bones of the tail. Okay, I will hide controlled bones to work easier. Okay, so now I will have to go frame by frame, moving the tail to follow the arc. Okay, this is not the exact movement, but it works to show you the point. Okay, so now it will always follow the arc. okay, until it gets to the normal position. Let's suppose it is here. So now, if we check the animation of the tail, you can see how the tail follows the jump. Okay, it is not perfect, but works better. Okay, of course I can fix some in-betweens here. Okay, maybe it is falling slower, so I will move the keyframes to make the fall slow. Okay, so now we have the jump with the tail included. Okay. Okay, I just broke it, but this is the idea. Okay, so we have the jump. Now, I want to show you another example here. I have a car. Okay, this is a car in another file. It is a Renault 5. Okay, this is the first car we had in my family, so I have a special love for it. So I wanted to animate this car in this webinar. So I have this rig, so I have this bone which moves the entire car. I have these other bones which moves the wheels. Okay, so this other wheel is being controlled by this one, so I just have to move one wheel. Okay, and I have this other bone which moves only the top of the car. Okay, so I can play only with the top of the car. I have another bone for the antenna. It is actually a dynamic bone, so I won't touch this because it will be animated automatically by the software. And I have another bone for squash and stretch. And squash and stretch is another principle of animation I want to show you. And it is applied in many cases, in most animations. But now we will make a very simple action. This car will move from one side of the screen to the other side. So I just select the bone layer here, and now in second one I will go to the transform layer tool because I will move the layer of the car to the left, and in second one I will reset the position. Okay, just to add a keyframe. And now in second two I will move the car to the left. Okay, so I have a very simple movement. It is not animation yet, it is just movement. So if I hit play, I can see my car going from one side of the screen to the other one. So again, I have an action here. Here is the action, which is the car moving, right? Okay, but we can add an anticipation and we can add a reaction, right? So for anticipation, I will make a very simple anticipation for this car. I will add another keyframe here for the position of the car, and instead of just moving to the left, the car will move to the right of the screen before starting to move to the left. So he will go back and then he will start moving to the left. Okay, and now for reaction, I will make the character to go beyond the movement I want, and then the car will go back. Okay, so I have anticipation and reaction. Maybe it is a little too much. here. So I have now the movement with with anticipation, action, and reaction. Okay, but now we have a rig for a car, so we will use this rig. So you remember we have this bone, okay, which moves only the top of the car. So we will move this in the anticipation. So I will reset the angle of this bone here just to create a keyframe. And now when the character is anticipating, the top of the car will go in this direction. Okay? And then when the car is moving, the body will go in the opposite. Okay? And then after that it will reset to the normal position. Okay, so you see now we are anticipating also with the body of the car. And then when the car gets the end of the movement, I will add a keyframe here for this bone, and the body will go in this direction and then go back, and then stabilize. So we have this movement. Okay, so now it is not looking too good here, maybe it needs some more time. Okay, now I want to show you, I don't know the exact name of this in the world of animation, but I call it a spring. Okay, so if I go to the motion graph, let me show you how to go to the motion graph. If I select one bone, I can go to the tab here of the motion graph, and now in the motion graph I have some channels here. So I will double click in the angle bone channel. Okay, and now I have a graph for the movement, for the rotation of this bone. So I will show you how this works. If I add a keyframe here, and if I move this key up, the car will rotate in this direction, and if I move this down, the car will rotate in the other direction. Okay, so the line here is a representation of the movement, of the rotation of the car. Okay, so now we have the graph. So when he stops the movement, he moves down here, then he moves up, then he moves up again, but not so much as the first keyframe. Then he will move down, but not so much as the previous keyframe. Okay, and then we'll go up again, down again. So you can see here is a spring. Okay, but you can see how it is getting smaller with the time. Okay, so this spring kind of movement let us make some movement which is gradually dying the movement. Okay, so it is smaller with the time until it gets the final position, okay, which is the normal rotation. So you can apply this to the car, or you can apply this to the ears of the rabbit, or to anything which is moving and gradually stopping to move. Okay, so now you can see it looks better. Okay, and now I will use the squash and stretch bone. Okay, so the principle of squash and stretch is that if you squash any shape, the shape will compensate that squash by stretching. So let me show you with a simple example. If I have this box and if I scale it down to maintain the same mass of this box, the character will scale it to the side. Okay, so Let me show you. So if I scale it down, I will have to scale it to the sides. So the idea is the mass is always the same. So if I scale it up, I will have to scale it down for the sides. So you can see how we have always the same mass. Now in Anime Studio it's very simple to make this, because if we take any scale control here and we press Alt, the software automatically will scale following the principle of the squash and stretch. Okay, so this is squash and stretch, and you can see a lot of example of the ball falling on some other stuff. We have some squash and stretch when our character jumps. Also, when the character anticipates going down, that's also an squash and stretch. Okay, so you can apply and you can see it in many actions. Okay, so in this case we have a squash and stretch but controlled by a smartphone. Okay, so you can check how to use smartphones to create this. It is just an action which is controlled by this bone. Okay, you can watch the other webinars to know how to set up smartphones. So now we will use the squash and stretch for anticipate the movement. Okay, so we have another principle in animation which is called exaggeration. Okay, so everything in animation will be exaggerated. Okay, so we are not creating real worlds. We have a cartoony world, and it has to be not real but believable. Okay, so in this world we can squash and stretch a car, and also it is the car of my parents, so he can. So I will reset the angle of this bone and I will create an anticipation, okay, with the squash. So now he's anticipating in a very cartoony way, and now when he starts the movement, I can scale it to the other side, okay, and then he can go to the normal scale again. Okay, maybe here. So now we have a cartoony anticipation for this car. Okay, and then when the car stops here, I will add a keyframe for this bone, and then he squash again, and we will apply the spring principle. Okay, so I have it scale down. I will add a keyframe, scale up, maybe not so much, then scale down again, scale up again but not so much, down, and then back to the normal. So I have the spring here, so you can see now I have a very soft body for the car. Okay, so we are almost done. Now finally we have this bone here I have for the car, so I will move the car as if it were a horse. Okay, so I will select the bone here, the bone of the base. I will reset the angle, and now when he anticipates, he will go up like a horse. Okay, because I want. And then when he starts moving, he will go down. Okay, I can reset the angle of the. So now we have a more exaggerated, a more cartoony movement for this car. He goes up. Okay, maybe he can go a little more, and then down. Okay, and then when he stops, I can add a keyframe for the rotation of this bone, but I will also apply a keyframe for the position because I want to move this bone too. So I have rotation and position, and now I will move my car up and rotate it down. So now when he stops, he will go up, and then I just copy and paste the normal position, so I have my car going down. So I have now a very cartoony Renault 5. Okay, so anticipation, action, and reaction, and all the other principles you can apply to it. Okay, I hope you like this webinar. There are other principles we can play with, but I wanted to focus to the more important in these cases. So read the books. Okay, if you want to read other books, just do it. And now I am ready to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victor. Before we get started with the many questions that have been posed, if any of you attendees have more questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat box in the questions area, and what we'll do is we'll try to address as many as possible. So Victor, the first question is, do you always reposition the character with bones, so to move the character for the jump, rather than move the layer to position the character? Do you find it easier to have everything in bone animation and not split between layer and bone animation?
In many cases I prefer to move the bones, because when I am using targets or some bone animation, if I move a layer, for example, if I move the layer of the wall, I don't have the feet always on the ground, so it is harder to animate, because if I move this down, I will have to manually put the feet on the ground. So for these cases, for this kind of action, I prefer to move the bones, because I have this kind of behavior. Now, for example, if I am making a walk cycle, I prefer to create, for example, this won't work well, but for example, for a walk cycle here, okay, let's suppose here is my character walking. Okay, so I create a cycle of this. Let me create a cycle. Okay, so you imagine this character is walking, and now to make the character move to the left, I move the layer. Okay, so I create some keyframes and move the layer. Okay, so I use for these cases a combination of both. Okay, but for bone animation, I generally prefer to work only with bones.
Okay, thank you. Here is another question regarding showing channels on the timeline. I'd love to know what's the easiest way to accomplish the goal of getting all the channels on the timeline.
Okay, I think the easiest way is to use, let me think, it is go to animation and select, sorry, go to frame 0. Now, no, sorry, go to frame 1. Now go to animation menu and select copy current frame. Okay, so now you check copy the entire document, and now you set to copy in frame 1. So when I make this, all the channels will be shown, because I just add a keyframe for every channel. Okay, that's the way. I don't think it is very useful actually, but if you want to do it, you can.
Okay, thank you very much. Just want to let everyone know that we will be going over time a little bit, so if you'd like to stay patient with us to the very end, you're more than welcome to do so. The next question is, when I freeze pose my target bones, sometimes they don't get frozen. I'll find them floating later on creating more work. Any advice on how to make sure they're frozen?
Okay. Yeah, that's why I like to Okay, let me show you. Freeze pose by default only works with bone rotation. So for example, if I have this character, okay, and I freeze the pose here in frame 12, you can see it will only freeze the rotation of the bones, okay? To make sure freeze pose is working for all the bones and for all the channels, that's why I select all the bones in frame 1. I go to the transform bone tool and I reset the position, the scale, and the angle, okay? Now, when I have all the bones selected, all the bones have keyframes, so now the software knows that when I freeze the pose, he must to freeze all the bones, okay, in all the channels. So probably when you first freeze the pose, your feet, for example, didn't have any keyframe before. So if you don't have any keyframe for translation of any bone, the software won't consider to freeze that bone. Okay, so that's why I think it is important to freeze the entire pose in frame 0.
Okay, thank you, Victor. The next question is a three-part question. The first part is, do you manipulate the animation curves in the motion graph editor? And then question number 2, or part 2, is, why do you use smooth better than Bezier? And part 3 is, in the motion graph editor, what is the better way to zoom in one specific point to manipulate it?
Okay.
Well, the first question is, do you manipulate the animation curves in the motion graph editor?
Yeah, I use them a lot, but not always. I use them for some movements. I just show you, for example, for the car, I use the motion graph only for creating some springs, okay, but I don't use that all the time. I think it is not really necessary and can be a little bit overwhelming. Is that the word? I don't know. So I just used it for some parts of the animation. Okay, now what was the second one? Sorry.
The second question was, do you use smooth better than Bezier?
Yep, I prefer to use the smooth by default, okay, because I like to have my animation clean, okay. If I set Bezier by default, for example, all these keyframes will be Bezier, so I will have all these controllers or all these controls. I don't want that controls all the time, so I prefer to work in a smooth, and then when I want a specific keyframe to be Bezier, I set up manually and then move it, okay. But if I won't use the controls in my animation, I prefer to not have them, okay. So I normally work only with the smooth. I mean by default with the smooth, but when I need, I set up a Bezier. And I remember the last question. I think it is about zooming in the motion graph. Okay, we have let me see, we have zoom here. Okay, so but it zooms horizontally. Okay, which is the same zoom in the channels. We have auto zoom, which zooms all the keyframes, so put all the keyframes in the screen. And now we have the manual zoom, which works with right click in the mouse or the pen. So you can drag first, you can drag the graph, so I can move it up, down, or to the left and the right. And now if I press shift and the right click, I can zoom. Okay, So I think a combination with auto zoom and right click with shift works very well. Also you can change the numbers here. In this software, any number can be modified by pressing right click and dragging. Okay, so I can drag here for the scale and here for the center. Okay, but it is the same than do it manually directly with the mouse on the motion graph. Okay, so I think that's the best way to do it.
Okay, thank you. A few more questions here. When do you decide to use to change the type of keyframe interpolation? Shouldn't there be a mix of interpolation to get realistic results?
Yeah, first, yep, we normally use a mix of interpolations. Now, when we are talking about animation, we are not trying to make it look realistic. Okay, this is not the right concept. We are trying to make it believable. Okay, but not really realistic. Okay, the reality and the cartoony are different words. Okay, so that first. Now, yeah, I can combine, and I actually combine different kinds of interpolation. There is an interpolation I really like, which is the bone interpolation, which is new in Anime Studio 10. So, for example, if you check the robot, I made this rig for this robot. So if you check the robot in the library, you can see it is animated with that interpolation. Okay, so I like the look it gives. Okay, but you can combine many of them. For example, I could edit in the motion graph my car moving to the left of the screen. I can take that translation, and I could set up this as Bezier. Okay, so for example, the car could start slower. Okay, and maybe stop in, very violently. So he starts slowly and then he stops. So I can combine that, and normally I combine this kind of animation. Now for this webinar I wanted to keep everything as simple as possible, so I didn't want to touch the different keyframes, the different interpolation modes. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Victor, the next question is, would you use bone dynamics sometimes to give some follow-through animation instead of doing it manually? For, say, the ears, do you use bone dynamics a lot?
Yeah, I use them. Normally I use them when I am working in longer animation, which I need to have fast. Okay, so if I am working in a very long animation and I can't focus in all the details, I use bone dynamics, and they are very good. But now I am used, but this is only me, but I am used to make that by myself. You have a little more control because you are doing, and it also works to understand the movement. Okay, when you give all the work for the computer, you are not really understanding what is happening. So I am not telling you to not use it. I use it a lot of dynamics, but it is also good to make it by hand sometimes. And also, for example, not all dynamics works, or sorry, not all this kind of dynamic animation works with angles for bones. So for example, if you have dynamics in a cloth moving or in a belly moving, that won't work with a bone. So you will have to animate that manually, probably moving the points, okay, playing with that. So it is good to know how to do it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Next question, Victor, is it possible to, in the middle of an animation, turn off a target bone?
No, no, you can't. No, sorry, no. Right now you can't. I remember once I had to create a copy of an arm. I had an arm with a target, and in a part of the animation I didn't want the target, so I created two arms for that same part of the body, and make one visible and the other one invisible. So I changed the rig in the middle of the animation, but it is a trick to do it, but officially you can't mute a target.
Okay, next question, Victor, is how do you decide on timing?
Oof. I think that's a hard question. I don't really know. I know I like the animations to be short, but I don't know exactly what is the principle. Just look them and try to make them to look natural. For example, I don't know, if I have this character, let me see, and I want to move this arm, okay, again 1 second is too long, so I just try to make it a portion of the second, okay, and just go by trying and changing the animation, moving the keys. Sorry, I really can't explain it. I have to think in that better to get a better explanation. I think it is a lot of trial and error. So sorry.
Thank you. I think that was a good answer. It's probably up to the animator to decide on exactly how much time to have between movements and what have you. So we have a bunch of more questions. We'll probably go for another 5 minutes, and then we'll wrap up the webinar. So the next question is, do you use any references for animation?
Yep. Normally I look for references in YouTube, in Vimeo, and pictures, but I never trace the animation of that references. I think a good way to understand references is to try to understand where are the keys or the movement you are watching. So for example, I remember I had to animate a chicken, so I need to know the timing of a work cycle of a chicken and how they move the head, the neck, and different parts of the chicken. So I checked the video of a chicken and detected around 3 key poses or 3 keyframes of that animation, and then work with that tree trying to reproduce on my animation. And once I had that 3 keys in my animation, I played over that. So I used the reference in the first moment, but the final animation is very different to the reference. The idea is to simulate the movement but not actually copy it. So you are, it is, the movement is like making a caricature. Okay, so when you draw a caricature, you are not copying exactly what you are seeing. Okay, maybe you make the nose bigger than it is, and your character will be more like an animal than a real person or something like that. With the movement happens the same. You are not making exactly what the reference does. Okay, you take it and you make a caricature of that movement.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, how do you keep the feet of your characters on the ground?
That's thank you to the new target bones. You can check the other webinars. You can see these bones have a little circle here. Okay, that means we have a target. Okay, if I have a target, I can move the body up and down, and the target will, and the legs will always follow that target. So in this case, this little bone is the target. So I can move it, and the legs will follow that target. Okay, so it is very easy. It is similar to lock bones. I don't know if you know, we have the option to lock a bone, but targets are much more powerful because you can animate a target. With lock bone, you can lock it, but you can't actually move it. It is always locked in that position. Okay, so I can't move it, but with targets I can. So you can check on the tutorials, or you can check the other webinar about rigging in Anime Studio 10 to see how to set up a target.
Okay, thank you, Victor. The next question is, when making a character and adding bones, what technique do you prefer? Binding layers, binding points, or just bone strength?
I use a combination actually. I don't like to bind layers to a bone, because when I bind a layer, an entire layer to a bone, I can't create smart bones. Okay, so I prefer to bind points, to use the bone strength, and also there is a very nice option in Anime Studio 10. Okay, I will create a very simple character. So this is my character, this is an arm, okay, in a different layer. Okay, here is my rig. Okay, so I have an arm and a body. Okay, so I can go to the layer of the arm, select the two bones of the arm, and I can go to the bone menu and use selected bones for flexi binding. So now this layer will use only these two bones to move. It won't consider the other three bones, and I can make the same to the other one. For the body, I can select these two bones and go to the menu. Okay, so now I have the strength in the bones, but the strength of the arm is not moving the points of the body, and the strength of the body is not moving the points of the arm. So this is a technique I use a lot. It is especially useful when you are creating characters using images, because with images you can't bind points because there are no points. So it is very useful, and keeps all the stuff in order to read.
Okay, thank you. since we've reached the 15-minute mark past the hour, we'll ask a few more questions and then we'll wrap things up.
Okay.
Victor. So the next question is, do you use different intervals when animating, like use ones on fast motions and twos on normal motions? I heard for lip syncing it's better to set intervals to 2 for realistic movements when interpolating. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I right now I am working in a project which is on twos. So most of the project is working on twos. So I have the interval set up by default in twos. But for fast movements or things that really doesn't work in twos, I change it to one. So yes, I think it is very useful. Sorry I can't show you the files of that project right now, but it is very useful. Actually, I have a tip you can find useful. When I am animating in twos, I like to, well, I don't know if maybe it won't work in your versions, but I can create a marker here. Okay, so I will create a markers. These markers are I create to know where the twos are. Okay, so I can create a cycle for this marker. Let me see. So now I have all the twos in the timeline, so I know my keyframes must go in over the markers and not in between. So for example, if I move this here, I know the movement will have to end here and not here. Okay, because if I put it in the middle, the twos will work. I don't know the word in English. Actually, I don't know the word in Spanish, but it will look very. It will shake. Okay, it won't look good. So I use this to animate in twos, so I know exactly where to put each keyframe. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Victor. One last fun question, and then that'll be it. Do you have
Okay.
any inspirational examples that you watch, like, for instance, cartoons, that you believe are good examples of the principles of animation?
Uy. I think I really like I don't know the name exactly in English, but I really like what Sony made with the Lego movie. I think it is very nice to see how they apply the animation principles with the limitations of Lego pieces. It is great to watch. I really like it. From the same company, they have you can help me here. Fahim Cloudy with a chance of meatballs. Is that the name of the movie?
Yes, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, I really like that movie, and I really like how they apply the animation principles in there, and you can compare different movies with that too, and you can see there is a difference in the animation, and they are very inspiring. The same with, I don't know, Kung Fu Panda. I don't know. I don't remember right now, but there are a lot of examples anywhere of very good animation.
All right, thank you so much. With that, I'll ask Michi to pass me the reins of the webinar so that we can finish things up. And I wanted to thank you, Victor, for taking the time to actually to do the webinar here for us. Here we go. Oh, there we go. That's what I was missing. Perfect. Now I can share my screen. So yes, so thank you so much for taking the time here, to present this webinar. I know you mentioned that this was a more challenging webinar to present, but I believe everyone learned quite a bit about the principles of animation, and particularly, how to apply them to Anime Studio. So thank you so much for your time as well. Thank you to everyone that joined us today. We really appreciate that, and for sticking around to the very end, for those of you that are here. And if you'd like more information on Anime Studio, please check out our website at anime.smithmicro.com. We regularly do webinars. If you'd like to check out the other webinars that are either upcoming or that have already been posted, you can check out the my.smithmicro.com/webinars link. We will hopefully have this webinar up in the next 24 to 48 hours. We'll also notify you via Facebook as well as the forums that this webinar is up. As well, our official forums are on Lost Marble. Should you wish to get a hold of Victor or anyone else on there, you can do so by just posing some questions, and people will help you out. So don't forget that, lostmarble.com. And make sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter if you get a chance to as well. If you'd like some deals on our products, please make sure to join our email list. The link is available to you right there. As well, if you have your own website and you'd like to spread the word and make a little bit of money on the side, we have an affiliates program that you can sign up to. And if you're a student or a teacher, we do have campus or educational pricing. The link is available at the very bottom there for you to check out as well. Finally, if you'd like to get some more information on what Victor's been up to and what he's doing or what he's done in the past with Anime Studio, check out his YouTube link, which is youtube.com/Tazatriste. And then also, Victor works for Floor Films, and they do some amazing stuff, so please check out their website. And once again, Victor is known as Selgin on Lost Marble, so feel free to reach out to him then and there. And finally, we didn't answer all the questions. We'll hopefully get to those on Facebook and address them there. So thank you very much again, Victor, for your time, and everyone else that joined us today. Have a great day, and until next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.